Ready? Chapter 32. An eventful night. Look at her! She's so beautiful, Ayla said with dreamy eyes as she looked at Aino. Yes, yes, Tore said as he continued to pat the general on the back. She seemed to have finally calmed down. Joar looked over at Aino. He didn't get it. Ayla talked about her like she was the most perfectly sculptured creature on earth. Yet all he saw was an average-looking woman. What was he missing? Hey, Ayla, you got any alcohol? Joar asked her. She turned to him. Yes, we've been saving it all for when our creator arrives, and here she is. It's time to celebrate. Joar was, as usual, competing with himself to see how much he could drink before passing out completely. He was already noticeably intoxicated. He leaned over to Colonel Reidun, who was sitting beside him. He gave her a big grin. I can smell it. She was also intoxicated, not to the level he was, though. I know you can, she answered. So? He looked at her, still keeping that big grin of his. I know where we can go, Reidun said, as she looked at him as well. Where? He asked her. She pointed to the forest. Joar nodded in approval. They both stood up and walked, albeit a little bit unsteady, into the forest. Aino looked after them, a bit confused. What are they going to do? Probably fuck behind some tree, Tore answered in his normal straightforward way. Those two are together? Keon said and gaped. Nah, they just tend to do it when they're drunk, and then deny it the next day, Banke said and chuckled. I'm going to go check. If I catch them now, they can't deny it. He sneaked away. It didn't take many minutes for him to return. He was laughing his ass off. You were wrong, Tore. It wasn't behind some tree. It was against one. He couldn't stop laughing. Did they see you? Tore asked him. Pretty sure they didn't. They were rather busy with each other, Banke answered, still quite amused by the situation. Ayla? Tore poked at the general. No response. He tried again. Still nothing. She had fallen asleep with her head in his lap. This is so weird. I don't think I've ever seen her like this before. She seems completely emotionally drained. He scratched his head. Hopefully, she'll be back to her old self tomorrow. I guess today was just a little special, Banke said with a smile. Tore kept poking her. It didn't work. Eventually, he grew tired of it and just yelled at her to wake up. It worked. They said good night to the rest of the people around the campfire. Ayla gave Aino an extra big smile before both the generals walked away together to find a spot to sleep for the night. Joar returned around the same time. Banke looked at him with a big grin. Where is Reidun? He asked gleefully. How would I know? Joar answered, like nothing had happened between them. Atle came and sat down next to him. Joar, however, took no notice of him and focused on Aino instead. He leaned over, staring her right in the face. It was almost like he was studying her, as best as he could, considering he was turning pretty cross-eyed at this point. Beautiful? I don't see it. I don't find you attractive at all, he said as he kept his eyes glued to Aino. She didn't respond. Keon felt himself getting angry at the lieutenant general. This was the second time he had insulted her like this. You're pretty shallow, aren't you? Keon said in a bitter tone to him. The officer turned to him. Are you looking for a fight? You want to have a go at me? No one is having a go at anyone, Atle said as he grabbed the giant man in a headlock. The lieutenant general stood up and dragged Joar away. Pretty tough of you to tell him off like that, Aino said, rather impressed to Keon. The way he talks to you when he's drunk is not okay. Why don't you speak up against him? He asked her. I don't care what he thinks about my looks. I don't find him attractive either, Aino answered him. Fair point, Keon had to agree. Plus, I and he are as incompatible as it gets. He's too big for me anyway, she continued. True, he is big. Wait, what would his size matter? Keon asked, befuddled. Silence. Keon slowly turned his head towards Aino. You're not talking about his height, are you? She gave him an awkward smile. An image from the night at the riverbank when he had seen Juha and Banke naked popped up back into Keon's mind. He shook his head in an attempt to get rid of the thought. He did not want to remember that. Reidun came walking back. She looked around a bit confused. Who is Juha? Atle dragged him away, Banke answered her. Why? She said, even more confused. Because he was being an ass. Ah, makes sense, she said and sat down. Aino turned her head to Reidun. So you and Juha, huh? No, she answered. No? I'm pretty sure Banke just saw the two of you have some fun in the forest. Aino looked a bit amused at her. Indeed I did, Banke said with a full-teeth grin. So why him? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any feelings involved, Aino asked her. Reidun took a deep breath. Because he's got a big... Okay, never mind, I got it, Aino interrupted before the colonel got to finish her sentence. Well, you asked, she said and chuckled. I'm sad my sister never got to meet you. I know she would have liked you. Reidun looked at Aino. How can you be so sure of that? Aino asked her. Reidun smiled at her. Because she liked everyone. You miss Ritva a lot, don't you? She gave the colonel a saddened smile. I do. I raised her. Our parents died fighting as yellow wolves when I was young. I was one of the ruler's child soldiers, just like Ilsa. I knew that one day my sister would face the same fate as me. When it finally happened, I couldn't take it, so I ran away with her. Joined Ayla's blood army instead. There my sister wouldn't have to fight in any battles as a 12-year-old. In the blood armies you can join the officer program at the earliest, the year you turn 13 years old. If you take the combined doctor and officer program, you can start a year earlier though. In return, you study for twice as long. So it makes sense. The year you turn 16 is when you graduate, so the earliest you can go into battle is then. You usually don't see much fighting though. The younger you are, the further back in the lines you are. Only once you're an officer, you get to move up based on your rank. Joining Ayla's blood army was the only way I knew how to protect my sister. Yet it wasn't enough. The yellow wolf still got to her. After all these years. Reidun looked up to the sky with tears in her eyes. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, then turned to Aino. Take good care of him. Who? Aino asked, a bit confused. Keon. He seems like a kind soul. Just like my sister was, she said and smiled. Aino looked over at him. She hadn't noticed, but he had fallen asleep leaning on her. I will, she smiled back at Reidun.